Good evening, everyone. And as you can see, I'm apparently hosting, which means only one thing. Josh has taken his yearly pilgrimage to Kentucky, somehow gotten lost, delayed, confused, and then I get stuck hosting the show. So I mean, I'll skip some of the normal intro. Josh always has a great narrative and a great diatribe where he talks through things. I'm just going to bring Caleb in here. Caleb, what do you make of the fact that our co-host apparently cannot commute to the state of Kentucky without some sort of massive, like, world-breaking problem happening to him, where he's lost, he disappears, he gets confused, there's a traffic jam that he gets stuck in for 12 hours. I mean, his food got delayed like apparently 6 hours today, something crazy, you know?
He's really starting a brand over there with the Josh Challenges of Kentucky. I think he got either DQ'd out of second or DQ'd by the horse he had in second was DQ'd for a big exacta the other day. So I know Kentucky has not treated Josh well on big racing days, and that is a theme that has continued into this very stream.
Oh, Josh, never change. No, so plan for tonight is to go through this Kentucky Oaks pick 5, and this will be the pick 5 that is race 7 through 11. So it will end in the Kentucky Oaks, but we'll start off in the Alashiba. But before we get there, Caleb, I just kind of general consensus. I know you're probably like me. You've probably capped both the Oaks and the Derby, the full cards. And I definitely had some feelings on this whole 2-day sequence. I mean, kind of what are yours overall? What are you thinking about everything?
Yeah, so I've really spent most of my time on tomorrow's card. I haven't gotten too detailed into the Saturday card, except for the Derby itself, obviously. And I took a look at the American Turf on Saturday. So those are the races I've looked at. I will say it's a good betting day. I think I don't see any, or I won't say any, but I see very few horses that I think are overwhelming favorites that you just can't beat. So I think that it's the kind of sequence that I often have like 3 to 4 horses written down at on my first pass, and then going back through, I'm going to have to figure out which ones to lean on, which ones would I be okay with losing to. And I think it's also important to consider the weather. It looks like it's going to be pretty wet tomorrow. We'll see Saturday, hopefully fast and firm, but it depends on how quickly the track dries out and how much water they get between now and tomorrow night. But I would expect a wet one for Friday.
Yeah, no, I was kind of, I think my consensus was, I went through, I've capped all, there's 13 races tomorrow, 14 races on Saturday. And my general consensus is end to end, this is one of the most competitive, really good betting products that I've seen on an Oaks Derby day in quite literally years. It feels very much like every field is deep and competitive. You may be slightly lacking in the star power category. You might not have those, the Caleb's wish or whatever, those types of.
I have a wish now.
Yeah, you have a wish. That's it, all right. Kind of horses, right? The big name star power horses that you want to see in these kind of days. But I think this is a very, very good betting product. I think it's very good from a competitiveness level, and it's an interesting. Yeah, I think it should be good. It should be a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah, I completely agree.
Let me see if I can share my screen and not break anything. This could be entertaining. Hopefully. Oh yeah, there we go. Let me make this a little bigger so people can actually see things. We're gonna start off here with the grade 2 Elishiba going a mile and a 16th, obviously on the main. Your again, another one of these races that I kind of got into and I thought was a pretty darn good betting race. How'd you kind of see this one falling, Caleb? Where'd you land? What were your thoughts?
Well, since Josh isn't here, I'll tell you what his thoughts are first. And it's going to be he likes Pipeline because it's an E8, but he also likes Money Supply. And there's the two horses he's going to use. He's not going to
Okay.
use First Mission, but he's not going to have a good reason not to. So those are that's Josh's opinion, and we'll see how close I was whenever he jumps on. Um, my opinion it isn't actually that much different, which is funny, but this is a hard race for me because First Mission, two of his last three races were really, four of his, five of his last six races, honestly, were extremely good. But that Pegasus does sort of stick out like a sore thumb. He's the 8-5 favorite in here, and he's a deserving favorite. But I think it's a little bit fair to question, what we expect to see from him. It's one thing for him to lose in the Pegasus. There's no real shame in that, but something clearly went wrong there. He came back into Essex and absolutely romped, but I'm not sure there's a ton behind him in that field. Clark that he ran back in November at Churchill, that was probably his best race, truthfully, even though it was in second place in a losing effort. That figure came back extremely fast, but I do sort of wonder about the quality of that figure as well, given the way that some others have come out of that race to perform. So he's one that I don't think you can be aggressively against, given the fact that two of his last three races are pretty much good enough to win this. But by the same token, I think that it's a little tricky to really lean on him because I think a lot of folks got burned in that Pegasus, and this is probably the best field that he's faced, even if it is somewhat of a softer version of Alashiva compared to what we normally see. So he's one that I sort of struggled to get a grip on, but I think he's one that you need to have somewhat of an opinion about. So I'm kind of curious what you thought of First Mission.
Yeah, my opinion is, I guess, the latter of your sort of takes, and that's the fact that I completely tossed First Mission. I just thought he had been very, very inconsistent. That Pegasus was just too bad to kind of be ignored. I realize time form. I guess on any figure you look at, he is the fastest horse in the field. But which kind of First Mission shows up, and I imagine he's going to take a lot of money and be quite a bit shorter than that 8-5 morning line. It wouldn't surprise me if he's closer to maybe even money in here, 6-5 range. And so I just thought, I wanted to go other directions in here. I think this is, a fairly talented field. There's a couple of other interesting players in here. And I kind of alluded to it to where I landed. I thought there was some, somebody like maybe a Tumble Rumba, maybe somebody like a Tap at Trice, or the other horse I thought was a little interesting in here were somebody like Trademark. All horses that seem to really enjoy this Churchill Downs surface, all have a bunch of wins here, and all have speed figures that, if First Mission brings his A game where he's running 130-ish time form stuff, he should be really tough in here. But Trademark ran a 132 back. I thought Tumbledore ran a 124 2 back. Tappet Trice comes out of his last race. Yes, it was across an off going, but ran a 127. So I think the gap between First Mission and some of the rest of this field is not huge. And I thought there were a lot of interesting ways to go.
Yeah, you brought up a horse that I did want to talk about, or really a couple of horses, I guess. Trademark is the one that I'm a little bit interested in of the ones you've sort of talked about. Because if I'm going to take an inconsistent horse that has some really bad races that I can't explain, at least give me the 6-1 horse and not the 8-5 horse, right? Now, granted, Trademark has done this a couple of times where he's run a big race and followed it up with a bit of a stinker. But I won't say all, but the majority of his good races, including his two best races, have come at Churchill. This is a horse that clearly likes this surface and likes this trip. He's also one of a couple horses in here who have proven themselves over and off track, which I don't know how sloppy the track will be come this time tomorrow, but I'm assuming it'll be at the very best good, if not muddy, depending if they seal the track early. It really just depends. But either way, I'm expecting some moisture in the track, and he's one that's handled it. Another horse that I like that's kind of proven to handle that off track and is going to be a nice price in here is the number 4, Call Me Fast. And I acknowledge his last two races you could not call fast. They were, in fact, slow. But I think there's some excuses there. The race at Charlestown, some horses just don't like that bull ring configuration. It's got like 11 turns going a mile and an eighth. So I'm going to forgive him for that effort. And then after that, he came back off a long layoff going 7 furlongs, which is really just shorter than he wants to go. I think that was pretty obviously a prep race for a stretch out second time off. And if you look back to his races prior to those, he's been good. I mean, he ran two really good races in Kentucky, second place in the Blame and the Ben Ali, both times to Rattle and Roll, who at the time was looking like one of the best older dirt horses in the country. He likes an off track. He does have that mile and 16 sloppy victory last year. The last time he caught an off track, he ran a nice race. And he was also kind of against the flow of the race in each of his last two races, where blue coated fractions on time form, kind of trying to close into slow fractions over trips and circuits that maybe really weren't to his liking. So he's one that I was a little bit interested in here, getting a pretty massive jockey upgrade from Leparoux and Talamo up to Flavian Pratt. So he's one that I did like. And I guess to circle back to maybe the last couple that you mentioned, like a Tumbarumba, for example, I really struggled with the Gulfstream horses in here because to me, it just seems like I Miracolo, Tumbarumba, Steel Sunshine, they just all kind of take turns beating each other. And if you've followed our stream at all in the past 5 years, you know I'm not a fan of horses like that. So, yeah, any one of those three could win, but I don't know how you use one of them versus all three of them. And I'm just not super high on any of them. So I'm going to be more inclined to probably take a stance against all three of those Gulfstream shippers, given the fact that they just don't have the consistency for me. But if one of them does jump up and win, I can't say I'd be terribly surprised.
Yeah, no, I really respect your take on that group of horses. I picked some of them, taking some shots, but when I picked my Gulfstream horses, I tried to find horses that had some form over the Churchill surface, and so that's why I landed on the two of them that I did, the 6 and the 10. Just thinking that maybe there are definitely certain trainers. Brian Lynch is what I kind of think of, who I don't think his horses normally shine at Gulfstream. He's somebody I always have thought of as being a more Midwestern trainer. And does he point for meets like this? And, is he getting races into a horse, setting him up for, to show up and run at Churchill? Maybe I'm wrong. But 8-1, I'll kind of, I'll pay the tax to sort of find out. And, I also had mentioned Tappet Trice, and he's a horse that clearly it's been a while for him. About a year since his last. And they've definitely, this is one that kind of screams on paper like Todd doesn't quite know what to do with this guy. They've tried a bunch of different distances. They've tried some different things with him. Definitely tried some different race tactics as well. And I just, it's not that I necessarily love Tappet Trice. Especially, I would probably like him a little better if he had at least a prep going into this. But my thought with him is that there's some pace signed in here, and if this does get a little salty on the front end and it does come apart, is there a chance he's the horse that's kind of rolling home late to pick the pieces off? That's always been his run style. Now, hopefully, he doesn't do any of this thing where he breaks 12 or 10 lengths last or behind, which he is sort of prone to do. But if Arad keeps him a little bit more, maybe 5 or 6 off that sort of fast pace and kind of can get rolling home late, he's an interesting horse that I still wonder if he maybe has some upside coming into his 4-year-old season.
Yeah, Tappet Trice is a bit of a wild card in here because he is that big 3-year-old now coming back at 4, and we just don't know what we're going to see. He clearly is a talented 3-year-old. Also has some big Tacitus vibes, in my opinion. He seems like a horse that's just a hard horse to ride. He kind of makes his own trouble, finds his own trouble, I guess you could say. And there's clearly talent there, but it's just a matter of putting it all together. Maybe he's more mature at 4 and he takes that step forward. He's certainly one of the horses in here with the most upside, I would say, relative to the rest of the field. But for me, I feel like he's going to be short. Probably just too short for me to want to go there. 7-2, maybe, but I think he's going to be a little bit shorter than that. So for me personally, I'll probably take more of a wait and see approach with Tappet Trice. But he is a very interesting player in here. No matter how you feel about him one way or the other, I'm very curious to see how he's going to run.
Yeah, my thought was actually I thought that morning line was a little generous. I thought he might drift up, and so my thing was if I was looking at I capped the morning lines off, but I was thinking he'd be more in that 6-1 range, and I was a little bit more interested in him there, especially considering I think First Mission takes a ton of money here. So does somebody like a Tappet Trice drift a little and become a little more viable? I'm not going to probably win bet this race. It'd be more of a horizontal play, but just take a look.
I think just on a day where public money tends to sort of skew the odds pretty heavily on the Derby and Oaks Day, a horse with a name that everybody recognizes, that ran in the Derby,
Yep.
I think he's going to take more money based off that, more so than the Sharps. But
no, it's fun. Who did you actually land on for your top choice in here?
My top choice would probably be the 10 trademark.
Okay.
He's got some big numbers and then some terrible numbers, but given the fact that he likes Churchill, he likes this trip, and he handles an off track, he sort of is the one that I liked the best. I do respect First Mission enough that he'll probably make some of my tickets, but he's not a horse that I would probably want to go very strongly through simply because he's not going to offer much value. And then, yeah, Nick also says he likes Call Me Fast. So him and I are, as happens frequently with him and I, on the same horse at a nice price. So I'm glad to see that we both
Okay.
see some of the same things there. And then the last horse that I am probably going to use in here in some capacity will be Money Supply. I've been doubting this horse for like a year because I just couldn't believe that a horse that got claimed off a Chad for 3 packs of cigarettes could actually go and run in graded stakes races. But Joe Sharp clearly has this one going the right direction. It didn't run didn't run poorly, but didn't run as well as I think a lot of people hoped last time out. But prior to that, was on just a hell of a tear, including winning 3 in a row over sloppy and muddy tracks. So it might kind of, to your point, if the race comes apart, like Money Supply is probably the one I would want a little more than Tapper Trace.
No, no, I respect that, and I do agree with you. I think if it does, if they do get a little more rain, and just so people know about the weather, I've seen weather forecasts all over the place. I actually just looked, and it looks like they're calling for a lot more rain tomorrow than they were earlier in the day. Earlier in the day, they were talking for thunderstorms at a third of an inch of rain, and now that was like 8/10 or something I just saw. So it sounds like it might be a lot wetter than we were expecting. And if that is the case, I would say somebody Money Supply becomes a lot more interesting in here. One other horse I wanted to ask you about. You give this Japanese invader any look, Tio St. Denis? Obviously from same trainer in connections from the other Tio that runs on Saturday, Tio Password.
I do not know. I think he would be a very, very large surprise. He's 2 for 22 racing against likely weaker company than what he catches here. I'm also no fan of Tio Password, so I think this is we had an extra seat on the bus kind of a horse, so he's
Yeah.
not one for me.
I just wonder. Yeah, I mean, it just kind of that cute outsider angle. So, yeah, cool. Anybody else we need to talk about in this
Let me just
race?
look at the chat real quick. So Cobb is asking, why did Tappet Trace have 251 days off? I don't know a specific reason. My guess would be that that's kind of the end of the 3-year-old campaign, essentially after the Travers. After that, you start running into
Yeah,
races
you
that
go
are
with older.
three
Yeah.
and up. Yeah, and this is a horse that probably just didn't have anywhere really to go. He was also pretty heavily campaigned as a 3-year-old. He had, I think it was 7 starts as a 3-year-old for a Todd Pletcher horse is quite a
A
bit. I
lot.
think they're just giving him some time off to see if he can mature a little bit since he is a bit of a difficult horse and still a bit of a green horse. So I don't think it was anything injury related or anything like that. Probably just giving him some time to train and rest up a little bit.
Yeah, that was my sort of take as well. He wasn't going to be a Breeders' Cup Classic contender. They could have run him in like the Jockey Club Gold Cup if they wanted to, but I think with his sort of lackluster, I mean, he ran third in the Travers. He didn't run that bad, but what else do you do with him? You kind of put him out to pasture, bring him back as a 4-year-old. That's where he probably belongs. Give him some time off. He had a long campaign, and point him for this year. So no, I completely agree with you there. Anybody else we need to talk about in here? I'm looking at chat, trying to find anything. Nah.
No, I don't think so. Stephen Fox, friend of the stream, happy to help us with any of the Gulf Stream horses anytime we need.
So we need all the help all the time, all the Gulfstream horses, Stephen. And I do appreciate Stephen. We have a group ticket going for Discord. He's topped in and was extremely insightful and very, very helpful. So thank you very much, Stephen, for supporting that effort and helping me organize the crazy mob that it was. So
Sarcasm? I'm just kidding.
So next race, the grade 3 Modesty. Oh man, look at who is getting his headphones on. He's getting ready. Okay, we'll give him a minute. We'll give him a minute. The grade 3 Modesty going a mile and eighth on the turf for 400K in here. Not that I want to throw Caleb up again here, but I completely am forgetting who's in these races because I went right from one thing to another, and that's not good for Mark for Mark hosting and trying.
This is an
It
easy
looks
one. Come on.
it's an easy one.
Josh is going to say single Heavenly Sunday, move on, right?
No, I'm not on Heavenly Sunday. Yeah, so The Modesty. I actually covered this one with Gino, and I thought that first of all, I thought did anyone else think the line on this race was pretty bad?
It
Not
felt
really.
okay to
No,
me.
but
I
okay.
mean, don't like why is the six? Don't you guys think the six is going to go off favored in this race?
The 6 is my top pick, but
She really doesn't like
5 to
winning.
1 might be a bit high, but I don't think the horse is going to be like 5 to 2 or anything.
Gotcha.
She's kind of camera shy, isn't she?
Yeah, but I mean, those races are better than I think anything anyone else has run in this race. I had the six down as my top pick. There were two other horses I did like in here. I thought the number 10 horse, if you looked on time form, the 10 horse, and I'm trying to look at your screen because I don't have the PPs up, Sparkle Blue, I'm pretty sure that this horse is got the best time form figures, if not the second best figures in this field. And I think people are going to see those connections and maybe shy away a little bit, and maybe won't get bet down like the six might with the six having the connections it does. So I kind of thought that those were my kind of my two A's in this spot. I do think surprisingly is probably your most likely winner, but Mark, there was a horse that I had asked you about, before I went on with Gino, because my eyes kept on going back to him or to her, and I didn't know what to do, and that's the 11,
Oh,
Caroline
oops.
Street.
I went the wrong way. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the 11, Caroline Street.
You've
And
been there actually.
have I been? Well, I have
You
been
you
on
have
Caroline
you
Street.
have been there. You met Andy Serling on Caroline Street.
I did. I saw Andy Sterling. I did not meet
Well,
him.
you saw him. He passed. I offered to introduce, and you weren't interested.
Timeform had the Saratoga race. Um, they had that race. I don't want to say it was at least in the realm of what some of these other horses had run, and I know the other races just don't look that great. But I saw that Joel Rosario was aboard on that one, and I see this is a horse coming from off the pace. It's the turf, the rails were up today. They're going to come down tomorrow, so I assume that speed's going to be a little less useful there. And so I thought the 11 at a price was one that could surprise a little bit. And apparently Cobb is calling me out because that horse does have very nice late pace figs on Brisnet, but.
No. I thought Caroline Street made a lot of sense in here. I think that's a bad morning line. I know that you were alluding to that, Josh, and that may be the one that's a little bit tall. But also it's a Brendan Walsh horse. It's got a kind of a long layoff, and I don't necessarily know if Brendan Walsh first time, well, technically second time, in North America horses are a big move up angle, and that Saratoga Oaks Invitational was just almost too bad to be believed. And then sort of she comes, goes back to the Cur, runs basically terrible again, and then is back here. Is it just they absolutely don't know what to do with this horse? They're trying to figure it out. I mean, that Saratoga Invitational, she ran a 1:11 time for him, and you were talking about some of the others in here who are in the mid 120s. So if you think that's just an ab event, she had an off day, didn't handle the surface or the going or whatever it is, okay, cool. I mean, give her a second shot. I have zero issues against that. It's just sort of the my issue is she's coming those races occur, and even the races, the Prix de Diane is the preeminent, like if you have a loaded extremely talented 3-year-old filly, that's where you ship her, turf filly. But beyond the running in that race, she was not running in some of the best races. This is sort of allowance caliber field European racing. So I don't fault you for liking her. But she's definitely an inside or an interesting player. I just kind of head scratch at what they're trying to do with her.
Yeah, she's too slow, and you're wasting your money.
There we go.
Like you can't excuse the Saratoga race as a bad race when it's her fastest race, and it's still 4 lengths too slow. And if there's something that that makes you think she takes a big step forward, then sure. But based on her body of work, it's hard for me to see a reason she's going to jump way up here.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But with that being
Um,
said, Sparkle Blue was interesting. Whoever was that, Josh, who brought that up, or was
that
that
was Josh.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
some.
I
so?
thought on time form that horse looked really good, but honestly, Caleb, just talking about the 11 real quick. I think part of the reason I get to that one is just because Mark alluded to the 6. I think the 6 on paper looks like the best horse. I mean, I like if that horse had won a couple of the last races, I think all of a sudden I'm in single territory. But I think because it's not really a horse I can trust. I was just trying to look for alternatives. I think the 10 is the next strongest one, but yeah, go for it, Caleb.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I don't have the 10 really anywhere, but I do agree. I'm sorry, I do have the 10. I don't have the 11 anywhere, but I agree with your assessment of the 6 that with a bit more of a finishing instinct and nose for the wire could be a potential single. But with the way that she's performed in her last 4 seconds out of her last 5 races, a little harder to trust. So certainly understand that perspective. Sparkle Blue is kind of a wild horse because I don't know that I've ever seen a horse that has been in as many slow paced races as she has. I mean, time form has, I think, her last 6 races coated in blue. And up until recently, that's always worked against her as she's been trying to close into those fractions. Last time, I guess Connections just said, hell with it, we'll go to the front, and it worked out, and she was able to wire field. I don't know how much confidence I have in any of those final time figures, given how much they've been adjusted. I mean, that was a 21-point adjustment in the Hillsborough. I mean, a 15-point adjustment in the Endeavors. So it's tough for me to get a real feel for what those final time figures really should look like. But regardless, this is a nice filly or a nice mare. So I'm with you. I think she's going to get probably ignored a little bit due to the Connections, like you mentioned. And she's a nice B type player for me in this race. What should be a decent price.
I think when also like you kind of mentioned it, I think just the versatility of the 10. I mean, like you said, the fact that the horse has won from coming, cutting off the pace, being right on it, and also leading. I think that that versatility really is a plus for me.
Sure. I want to
So
talk a
I'm
little bit.
oh,
Sorry, Mark, you go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
So I want to talk a little bit. Speaking of like versatility of who's on it and who's not, I'm curious. How did you guys see the pace from this race? Because at first blush, I didn't like the 4 Heavenly Sunday. I don't think the horse is that fast. I don't think the horse is that good, honestly. But when I finished handicapping the race, I struggle to see many other horses that really want to be up front with her. And if they let her go, you think she does merit some respect. I mean, she's not so far removed from the upper tier of this field that if she gets to go 24-48, she can't just steal it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of pace in here. Obviously, she should be controlling pace, but I don't know if that's a jock I want on necessarily on a horse. I mean, flow's fine, I guess, on the front end, right? But I don't know. She's folded versus field. She's kind of folded a lot late in a bunch of other races, whether it be that Lake Placid or that or the Tappan or the Appalachian. She just doesn't quite seem to have that finishing gear, and I don't know. I don't know what the issue is, but. At 3-1, I'm just not that interested in her. There is a price though where she does become, kind of an interesting player in here.
Yeah, well, that was my take. At 3-1, it's kind of like I wince, and that feels bad.
Yeah.
But at 5-1 or 6-1, I think she becomes much more interesting.
Yeah. So the one horse that you guys haven't mentioned that I'm kind of surprised at is the 2-horse Aspen Grove, who I actually was pretty high on in here. She took it seems like she was decent company that she was keeping in Europe, and then she comes over stateside in kind of the tail end of her 3-year-old season, and wins the Belmont Oaks Invitational going a mile and a quarter. They presented a Saratoga Derby. She ran okay, and then ran the EP Taylor, where she seemed like it almost kind of felt like she tailed off towards the back end of her season. And then at least on time form figures, first start of her 4-year-old season. And I realized it was at Tampa, and we all know Tampa turf, figures can be a little suspect, but she took a pretty massive step forward. And I wonder if this is just one of those horses that, took a couple of starts to kind of figure it out. I realized she didn't beat Sparkle Blue, who's also in this race, yada, yada. But I don't think she needs, a huge step forward to be a pretty major player in this. I think you get a square price in that sort of 6-1 range. I think that's kind of where she ends up being, and she doesn't really need to take a much of a step forward to be or at least I don't feel she needs to take a much of a step forward to be a pretty massive player in here.
Yeah, this is one that I didn't really know what to do with because I don't think I believe the time form figure. Kind of I alluded to earlier. I mean, that's a for her. It's a 32-point time form upgrade compared to the raw time figure, and
Okay, okay, you're playing that game. Got it.
yeah, and it's a 7 point, or 8 point, new top. Not impossible, certainly, but it just feels like a monster race if that figure is accurate. I do think she probably ran the best race, considering if the pace was slow, nobody did much closing, and Sparkle Blue got away with murder on the front end.
Mhm.
But I don't know that I buy the figure, and I also tend to wonder if she may want to go a touch further than this. But yeah, I'm not against her by any stretch.
Okay, cool. I would say because you guys kind of managed to talk about the other horses that I want to talk about in here. Bartender Josh, you got anybody else you need to discuss in here?
No, but you guys already went over race 7, right?
Yeah, we did.
Um,
Do we need to go back to race 7? I
There
can make
actually is
that
one more
happen.
horse I want to talk about here before we
oh,
jump
go
back.
for it.
Oh,
Well, I got to
go
pull
for
my
it.
notes, so go for it.
Yeah. A horse in here that I actually liked, that's going to be on almost all my tickets, crazily enough. I can always find a case for a 30-1. And I don't, I don't think Forever After All is in here without a chance whatsoever. And if you look back, the dirt form doesn't really inspire you all that much, but the connections never dropped this horse at all. So clearly there was some confidence in there. They have either a private transfer or something happens to go from Alstall into Brenton Walsh. They immediately go onto synthetic, and the horse gets a win on Turfway's synthetic surface. They move her straight into the Latonia, the prep for the local stakes there for Jeff Ruby. The same day as Jeff Ruby, rather. And she didn't win the race. She ran third, but it was an extremely slow pace, color coded blue on time form once again. She came from way out after blowing the start completely, runs a good third place, and the horse she just got beat by for second place, Chop Chop, who we all probably recognize. She came back to win the grade 3, the Bewitch at Keeneland next time out with a 121 time form figure. So, I mean, arguably that Latonia fig could have been a little bit faster than the 112 that we saw. So I'm wondering here, Brendan Walsh, very high percentage barn, having a good year, having a good, Keeneland meet. Can he get this one to pop on the turf here? I mean, the works on the turf, last time out seems this is a very intentional and well-meant move here, third off the layoff. So this is one that I'm definitely going to use at a pretty big price.
I didn't go there, but I love it.
Wait. Are you allowed to love it if it's not cheap speed?
Absolutely. It's a 30-1 shot.
Okay.
Where did you guys land on the Ali Sheba?
I'm pretty spready. I'm 6, 7, 10.
I was 10 was my top pick, and then on some combination of 1, 3, and 4. The 4 was kind of the price horse I liked.
We don't need to go back then. I have a single A, and that's a 10 trademark. So,
our top choices. That was both of our top choices. So, congrats on trademark for finishing.
Yeah, finishing a tired third.
Okay. This whole hosting thing, Josh, I'm totally been thrown for a loop.
Oh yeah, well, why don't hear? I can kind of take over here. We can move.
Do you want to drive?
We can move. Yeah, we can move over to race 9 here. The 8 Bells. Funny enough, 8 Bells is the first Kentucky Derby race I vividly remember, or Kentucky Oaks race I vividly remember. So,
no, you had it right the first time.
Shout out to that.
You had it right the first time, Josh.
Huh?
You had it right the first time.
Oh, Kentucky Derby, it was. Okay, I was like, what
she ran in the Derby.
She
ran not
in the Derby, yeah. Finished second, right?
Yep.
But 7 furlong race here, grade 2. And we got a nice field of 12 here.
I'll be right back.
And your 5-2 lukewarm favorite here is the 1 Impel. Then you got Denim and Pearls at 3-1. My Main Squeeze at 6-1. Tanya Showers 8-1. You got double digits on everybody else. I gotta admit, I wasn't very creative here. I did kind of think that it was a bit of a 2-horse race, and it really depended on what you thought of the 1 and the 7. I mean, I'm assuming that favoritism is going to flop over to the 7. People love betting these Keeneland horses. The horse looked absolutely amazing last time out in the Beaumont, and is coming right back off a couple weeks rest, and keeps Flavian Pratt aboard. And I see no reason uh, why she can't win here. And maybe not as easy as she did last time, but um, I really have a hard time looking past the 7 Denim and Pearls. I didn't even really have a B horse, and maybe I'm just like really too quick to kind of flip because I saw what I saw today on track. It seemed like speed was just not as good as it normally is. Um, uh, it's just not as good as it normally is at Churchill. So I had an awful, miserable betting day today. But I still I look at some of the speed in this race, and there's a couple of speed horses, and they both are pretty cheap. And if I think a horse might be too cheap, then it must be really really cheap. So I don't know. I just thought that the 7 is going to sit that nice stalking trip, sit third or fourth, and just blow by them on the turn and win pretty comfortably here. But Mark, what did you think?
Um, I actually saw the race very much, very, very, very similar to you, Josh. I thought that race kind of goes through Impel, or your 7 horse Denim and Pearls. The only other horse that I thought was a little bit interesting because it does look like there's a fair bit of pace in this race. Um, and I don't really know what she is at this point in time, but that would be the 2 horse All Things Go, who, if this does kind of come apart at the front end, I think, at least on the time form side, she's got the best closing pace figures in the race. I realized that, her fantasy wasn't much, but that race didn't really kind of come apart like it would have needed to. So I wondered if All Things Go was the one to pick up the pieces late. But those were the 3 I ended up on.
Yeah, similar take for me here. I completely agree with Josh, essentially, in the sense that I think that Denim and Pearls is probably going to go off as your favorite. I think Impel's a bit of a miss, especially off that disappointing effort last out in the Ashland. Also with Impel, I can't help but wonder. It feels like a really weird spot, for at least to me. I mean, a horse that they couldn't wait to stretch out, and she wins by 8. And then they put her in the Ashland, and she runs fine. I mean, she runs third in a Grade 1. And I don't know if she couldn't get into the Oaks, maybe, or what the deal was. But this is a relatively fast turnaround for a barn like Brad Cox and Juddmonte, and to kind of throw her into this spot off of that effort, I just didn't like it. It just doesn't fit right for me. So with that being said, of the 2 Cox, I will have Denim and Pearls as a single A. I'm not going to use Impel at all. I'm okay if she beats me. And I'll have 3 seahorses, one of which Mark mentioned, All Things Go. I think she fits. Didn't like the stretch out, but cutting back to 1 turn here makes her a player, I think. And then the 6 and the 9, Asternia, I think. Nice. Yeah, Asternia maybe too cheap. Not sure how those Oaklawn races are really going to translate, but on pure number power, she's pretty quick. Maybe has a chance to steal it if some of the speeds grab. And then the 9, another one who's essentially improved in every career start. Didn't like the fact they sent her for the lead in the Ashland, going a distance that's clearly just too far. But getting a nice cutback here to 7 furlongs, where she probably fits best, and likely to revert back to those stalking tactics that served her well 2 back. So she's the other one that I'll have as a C.
Only other horse that I had a little bit of interest in here that nobody has. Well, did anybody talk my main squeeze, the 11?
No, but I saw someone in chat.
Yeah, I saw.
Pull it up.
Yeah, I was going to say my main squeeze is a horse that I did have marked down as being a little bit interested in. Another one where she was in really, really good form running this, between 6.5 and a mile. They stretched her out to the mile and 16th. She kind of, she just didn't fire. And I don't know, she wasn't really even, she was unruly in the gate, wasn't involved earlier or anything else, but they kind of cut her back to what it seems like she's been doing real well at, which is this, sort of 1 turn races. So I do sort of think My Main Squeeze could be one that could make some noise. Again, she does need to take a little bit of a step forward off from any of those 3 wins that she had. They're all ducked races. Obviously, ducked figures can be a little suspect. So she would need to take a step forward. But I think they're probably Makers get her or Mike Baker's getting her back to doing more what she wants to do. Ben, I don't want to hear about it.
Hey,
Do we have any other things we need to talk about in this race?
no, I thought it was a pretty straightforward race.
Cool. Let's go on to the Edgewood. And by the way, I have no issues moving right along because the Oaks should take us about 2 hours to cover. Uh, Josh, I mean, considering you were you were the one that was late to get in here. What do
I
you
mean,
sort
do
of
you guys
thinking?
really have to ask who I like in this race?
Wait, where's the E8? Hold on, I don't even know who the 8 is in here.
It's got to be the one horse, right?
Absolutely, it's got to be the one horse. Uh, I talked about this a little bit on Drinking Champagne with Andrew. This is my long shot pick for the day, and you know, Pink Polka Dots uh, wired 2 really nice races at Fairgrounds. Looked good doing both of them, and then they get a little Oaks fever, and they try the bourbon at Oaks, and the horse gets on the lead, was the favorite in that race, and then just kind of faded late. Um, I think in talking with Andrew, I think he might have been a little concerned that maybe it was the coming off Lasix is the reason why she kind of faded. But I'm willing to give her another shot. Obviously, second time off Lasix here, but you know, as much as we talk about turf pedigree and synthetic pedigree, there being a lot of crossover and how it's kind of nearly the same and all this other stuff. Um, you really got to treat it as a third surface, and I'm gonna give Pink Polka Dots another shot and be like, hey, I like the 2 grass races. To cross the line through the synthetic race, getting back onto the grass is going to be on the rail. Is lone speed in this race, and I had a hard time looking past Pink Polka Dots at that price. I will say hard to justify the 2-to-1 favorite. I mean, looks pretty good here, and maybe this is just a time where I put a win bet on the one, and then I do a little key box with the favorite here, and see if we get first or second with this one. But yeah, I definitely really like the one Pink Polka Dots, and I think hard to justify of the short prices is the one to use.
Can
Mark.
somebody who's much smarter than me? I realize she won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly and Turf. Explain to me beyond that race and on having that win why she is supposed to be 2-to-1 in this field. I mean I guess she's clearly the classiest. I'm not trying to make that argument, but we haven't seen her in a really long time. Oftentimes it feels like a lot of these chads don't take that 2 to 3 year old step forward that we're looking for. And I mean, can she win? Sure, but do you really want to take her at 2-to-1 in this field? It just feels really, really, really hard.
Well, I think also
I
in fairness though, like a lot of the Chad Brown 2 to 3 horses of recent memory that I can think of, and Caleb, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong. Who is that sire that just like brings out those 2-year-old turf horses that seem to
Lope de
Lope
Vega,
de Vega? Yeah, there is that. Who is that? I'm already forgetting the name of the horse, but yeah, I mean, I
newspaper of
feel like
record.
yes, thank you. Newspaper record.
I
You
got
know,
you.
I just feel like a lot of those 2-year-olds that Chad had, were Lope de Vegas and win early pedigree. I feel like Justify has shown that he's definitely a turf sire to be reckoned with, even better than I think American Pharaoh so far. So I don't have as much of a concern with the 2 to 3 jump pedigree wise, but I do think that it can be a trap in general. These breeders cup juvenile horses coming over and first start at 3. So That's fair.
So I've just come to this realization, completely unrelated to the horse race, that Josh is really redundant here. I mean, Caleb knows all of Josh's picks already. He can fill in all the content Josh is going to fill, and I can clearly do the hosting duties. I mean, Josh is
Yeah.
just, yeah. I mean, uh,
At least until we get the cease and desist from DRF. So
which is coming literally any second now from me streaming this. But no, I mean, I actually saw this race a lot the same as Josh. I really like Pink Polka Dots in here a fair bit. The other horse I was really interested in was the 11 Way to Be Marie. Who is a horse that actually found some pretty darn decent fairgrounds form. And they were pointing towards this spot, and she's one that's basically gotten a little bit better in every single one of her starts. And I know, I mean, if you trust, I don't know if you trust time form figs or not, but if you do, that last figure on that fairgrounds race is head and shoulders above everybody else in this field. I'm sure Caleb any second now is going to tell me why that's the worst figure that's ever been printed, but at a big price, she's the kind of horse that I'm willing to give a shot at, who seems to have some talent, seems to like to win, and has some things in her corner.
Yeah, I don't believe the figure. You're right, but it is a tough call because this is a horse that has 3 pace adjusted figures on time form, essentially. Well, 2 plus that last one where they finally just said, okay, good enough. But it's tough because her prior 2 races also came up fast, and they've downgraded them, including where she was beaten by Pink Polka Dots. But there really just isn't a good way to judge that figure. There's only been 2 runbacks out of that allowance race at Fairgrounds. One of them regressed 16 points, but it was going from a route to a sprint. So there is a chance the horse maybe just didn't care for the 5.5 furlong distance. The other one regressed 14 points, but it was on dirt. So there's really no good way to get a feel for how legitimate that figure might be. I will say on Theragraph, it did not come back nearly that fast, and it doesn't look all that great on Brisnet. So I tend to be a little more skeptical of that, especially with the fairgrounds having some timing issues anyway. But the horse is going to be overlooked, so I wouldn't talk you off that horse, who's likely to be a double-digit price pretty easily in here. I will say that I find hard to justify a difficult horse to really pin down in here. These are normally the horses I would almost always play against, but it feels like Chad Brown in particular just finds a way with these female turf horses to come back sharp and live, and 2-1 feels gross, but she's done nothing wrong. She really tripped out in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. If you watch that race back, I mean, she got the cleanest, most beautiful trip you could ask for, and barely won against a couple of decent Europeans. So it's tough to say just how good she's going to be now at 3. What I will say is that her race at 2 in that Breeders' Cup already puts her in contention, and that was in November of her 2-year-old season. If she takes any step forward off that, I think she will be a handful. But my top pick is another horse who actually has already taken that step forward. And the reason I'm going with this direction is because I think that prep race makes a big difference. And that's to the number 4, Buchu. I thought this horse ran a great race at Keeneland in the Appalachian last out. Had every right to need a race coming off the layoff, likely wasn't fully cranked up for that. And she ran a nice race, improved her time form figure by about 7 points, also posted a new top on Theragraphs, and won that race over a fairly decent field there. So she's one to me that second off the layoff, coming in off a small new top effort, really looks to be dangerous in here and is going to offer more value than hard to justify. So I like Buchu on top.
Yeah, that was a nice win last time.
Yeah, it was
on the Appalachian. So that was another one I looked at. I just felt like I don't know. I mean, maybe this is maybe you do go against the favorite in here. Hard to justify. Maybe use a horse like Buchu. And I don't know. Did you talk about the 10 at all, Mark?
I haven't talked about the 10, but I was literally just looking at the 10. I was wondering if we're going to loop back around and I would have a chance to talk about that horse. It's the other Chad, and a horse that, clearly the, something went wrong in that Florida, that Florida Oaks. I don't really know what happened, but for Chad to wheel her right back, and to point her for this race, and bring her here. I have a feeling that they figured out whatever was wrong and got it kind of, they got it sorted out. And again, and she was very, very short on that day as well. So no, I thought dynamic pricing at 12 to 1 kind of range. A Chad that we know that Chad is very good at getting these just take another step forward. And honestly, on time for Fig, she's just as fast as hard to justify at 6 times the price. So
Josh, can you host so that we can get the fake chat alert, please?
I have the fake channeler. I just don't have the.
do I need to fake Chad myself? Hold on, I can probably do that.
Yeah,
A Chad brown horse that runs 7th at Tampa. That's all I need to know.
Where is it? I gotta find it
right here.
Is it? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have the soundboard, but yeah. I mean, like, I'd be remiss if we didn't at least look at the 12-1 morning line other Chad Brown horse, but yeah, I had a hard time getting there. Anything else in here?
I mean, horse looks too slow on every metric, but I keep circling back to the 8-horse Calispera a little bit in here. Did either of you guys give her much of a shot?
No, but honestly, that's exactly what happened to me with that stupid Caroline Street horse. I don't know why. My eyes just kept on going back, and I don't know if it's just because the PPs look different because you get the you get the European stuff in there, and I just keep on like looking at it because it's a European horse. But
yeah. So I'm thinking likely to have some moisture in the turf, assuming this stays on. This horse is clearly proven over way softer turf than she'll get tomorrow, no matter what happens. It doesn't strike me as a horse that we talked about this horse at one of the Keeneland cards. I believe she was an AE but didn't draw in. Maybe it was the opening weekend at Churchill. So this likely wasn't the target. This is probably a little bit maybe more than she really wanted. It's better company than she was hoping to tackle. Might just not be that good. But she's one that I think is better than what her 2 starts in America has dictated. And while a win might be a bit of a surprise, I wouldn't be surprised if she does get a piece.
The other horse in here that, and again, not to talk this race to death or anything, anybody give the 3-horse Scalable any look? Obviously does not have a turf start. Given those Tomlinsons, maybe she's just in here if this gets rained off gets rained off. But I found it an interesting move. I mean, Frankie Dettori's up. You got Todd, who, his numbers going dirt to turf are okay. 12% first time. And you're getting, decent, those kind of 12% first time turf sire stats as well. She has a run style that, maybe sets up more of that one run turfier sort of style. And it seems like the type that maybe gets a little lost on the board as well, given the fact that she doesn't have that turf start. Anybody give her a look?
No, I did not. Okay. In my mind, 12% first-time turf is fine for a guy like Rudy Rodriguez, but for a guy like Todd Pletcher, who's a perennial 25% guy, that's a bad move in my book.
It's not like he's Chad Brown or he's a turf trainer. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
known as a.
I don't think that they're either hoping for rain or they don't know what they have. So for me, not for me.
No, and honestly, like there was another horse that we were talking about earlier that I kind of have the same issue with, where we're running these turf routes, and then you look at the pedigree, and like you really just like wonder like what they were thinking with Speightstown and Tappet. I mean that's I guess it's a dirt sprinter, but they're trying it long on the turf. It just seems like I don't know. It just seems like a weird mix. There was another one earlier. It was like a quality road on top and like flatter on the bottom, and like I think it was in this the Modesty. And it's just
I remember that pedigree because I remember looking. I don't remember the horse, but I remember looking at that exact pedigree.
And I'm like, that's just weird. Like, why would you like? Yeah, I don't remember what horse it was, but
I mean, Quality Road. Well, I'm not going to.
Quality Road.
I was going to say Quality Road can run anything flatter though. Yeah.
Flatter is
yeah.
So I don't know. You guys ready to move on to the big one?
Let's do it.
Kentucky Oaks, mile in the 8th on the dirt. This was an interesting morning line once again. Tarifa's your morning line favorite, 7-2. You get Leslie's Rose at 4-1, Just FY at 9-2, and then Torpedo Anna and Ways and Means at 5-1, and then everyone else is just much longer price. I was listening to the Timeform US Pacecast, and they mentioned that it seemed like in this race they could see any of like the 5 short prices winning this race, and that everyone else was basically in here. With the exception, I think of the 12 Power Squeeze was the one that they did. They did talk up a little bit, but they could see any of the short prices, and you know, I guess before we get strictly into picks, when you do get a race like this, where maybe the top 4 or 5 choices are maybe hard to separate, and then you basically got everybody else. How are you guys attacking that horizontally? Are you guys just kind of like, are you taking all of them? Are you guys trying to find some horses to drop out of it? Like, what's the plan?
I think it depends on the horizontal sequence and what you're trying to do. I think one thing that's really interesting about these 2 days is that as much as I batch CDI, how they carded horizontals here, they did a really good job where you have a pick 4 or a pick 5 starting literally every single race. So you can look at something like the Kentucky Oaks and say, I don't want to play that race. I want to play other things and I'll avoid it. And then I think when I look at something like the Oaks, I don't see a standout horse that I really am just over the moon to rush to the windows to bet. So I'm okay being very sort of ABC spready here, having a lot of coverage and being, let's say, I'm probably going to be like 9 deep on something like a pick 5 in this race, but I'll take spots that I'll be a lot skinnier in other legs before this, so I can have that coverage into into a race like this.
Yeah, to build on what Mark said a little bit, I'm not going to have a pick 5 that has first mission with the Brad Cox horse, Impel, or Pearls and Diamonds, with the Chad Brown Justify filly, with all 5 favorites in the Oaks. Like, I'm just not going to have that ticket. Now, I might go take my 5 choices, even for the top 5 choices on the board in the Oaks, on the ticket where I start off with my 2 20-1 and 30-1s in the first 2 legs, where I have Call Me Fast into the Forever After All, the Turfway onto Turf shipper. Yeah, because if I get a 20-1 and 30-1, then I don't want to guess which 3 of the 5 horses I like in the Oaks are going to show up. So I'm fine with taking them all on that ticket. But if I have a ticket where I'm playing First Mission or I'm playing, the Hard to Justify, then I'm not going to also go 5 deep in the Oaks, where I'm not really increasing my expected return. I may be increasing my chances of hitting, but I'm not really increasing my overall equity, I don't think. So I'm not going to be spreading deep in a race where I'm already using chalk.
That makes sense. Do we have any early scratches in this race?
The
I have
one
not
is
seen
out.
any.
Tapit
Oh, that's right. That's
Janali
right.
is
Yeah.
out, and Our Pretty Woman is drawn in.
Okay, and that's going to be some pace there. That's
Yeah,
drawn
that
in.
really changes the race, I think, honestly.
Yeah, because I guess, and the reason I asked is I originally, when I recorded Drinking Champagne, I was pretty hard set that I was going to single this race. That I'm going to take who I think is the horse with the most upside in here, singular, and I'm going to go for it. But I think I think I'm starting to when I started looking at the sequence at like at a higher level, I realized that I didn't really like any of the favorites in the earlier races. So I think if that's the case, I think I can afford to spread a little bit more here. I mean, I don't think Tarifa is going to make my ticket, but I definitely think that I'm not going to just single the 11 Ways and Means, who was my top pick originally. I got 2 other horses I like here, but and maybe I'm way off base with Ways and Means. When I see this horse, and we talk about this all the time with these young horses, the fact that Ways and Means is still a little green, just I guess gives you the thought that there's still upside, and that GP Oaks finished second to Power Squeeze and was kind of steadied a little bit, kind of drifted. I mean, just did not look professional whatsoever. And if you have you watched any of her other races, none of her races have looked professional. So I don't know if we're necessarily at Tacitus territory where the horse just finds trouble all the time, and that's just the horse. But I don't know. I'm willing to give this one another shot, and I think this is the horse in here with the most upside that I could see doing something like a Serengeti Empress who, didn't. And I know she had the bleeding issue, which is separate, but kind of was just not getting it during the preps, and then all of a sudden, hey, here comes the Kentucky Oaks and runs her best race, and lo and behold, wins over a really nice field. So, of the short prices, I like the 11 Ways and Means. Just FYI, I really think that BC Juvenile Phillies turf, and I would be remiss if I didn't play this.
12! Let's go! Where's the fucking line?
But yeah, what I do like about Just FYI is that she has come back from that big effort and ran a decent second in the Ashland. Leslie's Rose obviously looked really impressive in that race, but I'm willing to give Just FYI another chance, thinking that maybe that's just kind of a prep. I know it's a grade one, and grade ones probably shouldn't be preps, but there also wasn't really much pace in that Ashland. They went 24-1, 48-1. I think you're going to get a little bit more pace in this race, and I think that's going to set up more like the BC Juvenile Phillies did, and I think that'll help with Just FYI. And then I got one other horse I kind of like in here, but Caleb, I'll let you go next. Where did you land?
Yeah, so I do want to talk a little bit about the horses you mentioned, because Ways and Means at 5-1, I can use her, but if she drops much below that, and I get the feeling she will, because a lot of people are on this horse, everybody saw the trouble, I think she's going to be too short for me. And I recognize that she has had legitimate trouble, but she's found legitimate trouble twice, almost three times if you count the issue with the break. And despite the fact that she did have trouble and it was off a layoff and she kind of had to steady in traffic, she made a winning move. Going wide into the pace maybe wasn't the best idea by Irad right there, but it's a move that with the short stretch at Gulfstream as a 1-2 favorite, you're supposed to win that race, not get run down by Power Squeeze, who has by all rights really overachieved relative to how good this horse probably actually is. No disrespect to the connections there, but I don't think anyone expected they'd be, in the Oaks given, when they were starting her in maiden special weights at Delaware. So, and I watched back, even in her spinaway race, Ways and Means, again, she clipped heels, dropped back, made a big move, and just couldn't get by Brightwork. So I don't know if she just finds trouble. I have major questions about the distance here. So she's one that 5-1 is probably the floor of what I could take on that horse. And I get the feeling she's going to be overbet. So for me, I do agree with you on Just FYI. I don't need to rehash that. I think she needed that start off the layoff, and I think she ran fine. The other horse that I do like in here is by my arch nemesis, Kenny McPeak, the number 5 Torpedo Anna. The horse is, 3 blowout wins and 1 pretty decent second place. I know friend of the stream, Matt DeSantis, did some breakdowns on the quality of fields she's beaten, and it hasn't really been the saltiest fields. A lot of them haven't come back to run all that well. But her numbers are fast, and when you're winning by 8, 9, and 4 lengths pretty much under wraps, I'm not sure how much I can knock you for the quality of competition that was 3, 6, or 8 lengths behind you. So I like Torpedo Anna in here. She's another that kind of got that prep out of the way, second off the layoff here. Should be in for a good race, and it is one that if things do get kind of spicy up front, which I could certainly see, especially with the 14 or 15 drawing in, she's one that probably seeks to benefit quite a bit from that. So I like Torpedo Anna and Just FYI as my top picks. I had a couple others I was interested in, but I'll see where Mark landed first.
Yeah, well, I'm so conflicted in this race that I have really no idea what I actually want to do. Initial first pass, I was like, okay, you single just FYI and move on. She probably needed the prep race last out. I think she's proven everything she has to prove, and I thought she would get a pace setup in here. And I think when you look at the 15 drawing in, she probably gets more of a pace setup in here that she needs. I think she's the best horse in the race, and I want most of my money going through her. But when you step back, the difference between her and some of the others in this field is just not that big. This is it feels like a very consistent, even field. And so, I kind of begrudgingly have added a few more. And I think we're very, very, very spread deep when I look at things like, our group tickets. I think for my personal stuff, I'm gonna get probably really cute in here and be like 90% just FYI, and then a couple others sparingly in here. The other one that I'm most interested in is the 14 Leslie's Rose. I think my take is just that the Ashland of the major preps was the best prep, and I want the two horses that coming out of the Ashland more than I want somebody coming out of the Gulfstream Park Oaks or somebody coming out of the Fantasy. I just think those were. I think we've seen, and not bashing our boy Chase, but I think the Oaklawn races in general, the figures of the form has not come back solidly. We saw that all the Keeneland meet, and I think the Gulfstream is soft as well. So I want most of them just FYI and this is Rose.
Did we
Do you hear
lose
that,
Mark?
Josh?
No, Mark, we lost you there for a second.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, your mic like cut out. Maybe just like
Okay,
it's still cutting out. I don't know what's going on.
give me a second.
Oh, there you go.
It was good whenever he just fixed that.
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Did it come back there?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no. So I just think that I want most of my money going through just FYI, a little bit of Leslie's Rose, and then I think beyond that, this race is just very, 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 very deep.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, I think those are both horses that are going to be on my deeper tickets for sure. So I respect that take. The only horse that I kind of felt obligated of sorts to make a case for at a price is the number 3. Where's
God
my rank?
damn it! I knew
Well,
it.
Josh, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, you son of a. You know what? Honestly, the 3. I mean, that Gazelle figure like jumps out on the page. Like I don't know, both on time form, both on Brisnet, it looks really, really good. And I think this is similar to what we're talking about with Just FYI. I think that if he gets a bit of pace, or she gets a bit of pace, I think she's going to be a real player in here. I mean, if we look at that, if we look at the San Isabel, ran second there, was able to close and had a real nice late pace figure. Same thing at the Aqueduct race, and that was off a slow pace, and she was up close. But yeah, I don't know. She's run some pretty decent races with these hot paces, and I just thought that this was a horse that's been improving. I'm a little concerned pedigree wise whether she wants to go this far, but if I'm getting 15, 16 to 1, I mean, yeah, sign me up. And then this horse has been working out like a monster since coming to Oaklawn or Churchill Downs. So I don't know. I thought there's a huge upside. I thought this is a case of a horse that might just be peaking at the right time, and I really like the price on this one.
Yeah, no, I do. I agree with you. This is my only horse in double digits. Why I actually liked is this horse. I do wonder if she perhaps took advantage of a really good rail that day at Aqueduct. We haven't seen enough runbacks yet for me to really be able to say one way or another, but it did seem like the inside was certainly decent that day. But at 15 to 1, I think it's the kind of horse you can be okay with accepting that as a risk because she's going to be no better than 6th or 7th choice in this race. So,
Yep.
Yeah, so I agree.
Mark?
I mean, I don't know how much of my previous stuff cut out with, but I kind of wanted Caleb's, I guess Caleb or Josh, if Josh has a take on this, because he very well may. What are your guys' takes on all the preps? Because I mean, most of these are coming out of 3 shared preps. You got the Fantasy, you have the Gulfstream Park Oaks, and then you have the Keeneland race, the with Lexington. What is your what is your take on those preps and the kind of the strength of them? I mean, sorry, the Ashland, not the Lexington, my bad. And I guess my take was I really thought that the Ashland was the best of the preps, and that's why I was kind of landed where I did, where I wanted the two horses that went 1-2 in the Ashland predominantly. Um, what's your what's your take on that strength?
Yeah, so I think the Ashland was the best prep, and I don't think it was really all that close.
Okay.
I think it was significantly the best. I think the Fantasy was the worst prep. I don't think it was that close either, despite the fact that I do like Torpedo Anna. I don't think she beat a very good field. And then I'd probably put the Gazelle and the Gulfstream Oaks kind of in the same bucket. I don't think either of them were very good, but they're both probably better than the Fantasy and worse than the Fairground Oaks, maybe. But I do think the Ashland was kind of head and shoulders above the rest, in the sense that I think a horse that finished, second, third, fourth could realistically have won the other preps had they gone that route instead.
Yeah, and by the way, hi the one guy in Twitch that wanted to see if we check you out. But we see it.
Hort Night is fun.
Oh, did you? Yeah, Fortnite is fun. Do you look at Twitch chat at all? Yes, we do. Yeah, he says he likes the 512 exacta box in the Oaks.
Okay.
Which is Torpedo Anna and
Power
Squeeze. Yeah. So I heard a lot of love for Power Squeeze on the Time Form Pacecast. But did you guys, either of you guys like this horse?
Yeah, I sort of did. I mean, it's one of those things. You like horses that like to find the winner's circle, and this one, I mean, Caleb made the thing about the Delaware and the Monmouth starts. They clearly didn't know what they had to start with, but this one seems to have gotten pretty darn good, and she just kind of keeps finding the winner's circle as they move her up in class. Lesser known connections, obviously, all the way around, but it's hard to knock a horse that really likes to win. I think she's a cut below the top contenders, but I don't think that cut is massive. And again, I've already kind of said, I think this race is pretty flat. I think it's a pretty competitive race. So I have no issues with somebody really liking Power Squeeze in here.
Yeah, I don't think that she can really win, but I see why people like her, honestly. I think she's tripped out in a lot of her races and caught some weak fields, or caught Ways and Means with some trouble, for example. But I think she'll keep on coming. She's very honest. I think the distance works to her advantage, where I have some questions about others. And she's definitely the kind of horse I could see using underneath. But I just feel like the Oaks came up really tough this year. There's been years where I think I could make more of an argument for her. But with the likes of Leslie's Rose, Just FYI, Tarifa, I mean, there's just your Torpedo Anna. It's a deep field this year. And I think she would need the top 4 or 5 to show up with less than their best for her to really have a shot on top.
Okay, so about Torpedo Anna, and I guess this was I initially didn't have her anywhere, quite honestly, and I know obviously Caleb likes a Ken McPeak's horse, so it's just a takeout reducer at this point.
Just throw it out immediately.
We could just toss that horse right out. But my thing with Torpedo Anna is she's coming out of arguably one of the weaker preps, if not the weakest of the preps. There's a ton of horses in here that have faster figures than her. I think that Oaklawn Figs came back a little bit juiced to begin with, and who is she really beating? I don't, I had so many questions on her that I just felt like I don't know. I don't get why people love her as much as they do. I'm trying to understand that, I guess.
I mean, for me, there aren't a lot of horses in here with faster figs. I mean, she has, if you don't believe the Oaklawn Fig, that's fair. But her last race was a 110 on Time Form, which is 3 points slower than the best. Well, okay, 6 points slower than Leslie Rose, and then 3 points slower than Ways and Means, and then on par with the other main contenders. They're all around 110. So I think she fits on numbers, second off the layoff. And I think people are hyped about her because Ken McPeak's been really talking her up, saying, he's bringing a bear, so they better bring a grizzly, or whatever the phrase was. So
it's Ken McPeak, though. He loves
he loves every single horse.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. I'm going more off the body of work. And I just, I like the way she's ran 3 or 4 races. I do say that if she gets as much hype as she appears to be getting, that makes me a little bit more hesitant, because she's also one I probably, given how tough this field is, I don't think I would want anybody at 5 or 2 or 3 to 1. So, and she's probably a maybe on the outside looking in of those top three just on raw body of work. So for me, I wouldn't want to go much lower than the 5-1 on the morning line. And I know she's taking a lot of money in the early 2-day doubles. So a price contingent play for me. But I do think that she fits on numbers and, proven at the trip and everything else.
Yeah, Fortnite is fun, saying that the one loss preceded a layoff, so maybe the horse needed a break after that. What if the other races are representative? And yeah, I mean that fantasy figure looks pretty good. I know. I think we've had some questions about some of the horses coming out of Oak Lawn preps in general, both in the Oaks and Derby. But yeah,
I'll say, if you're a Thoroughgraph player, you love Torpedo Anna, because that first time stretching out at Churchill as a 2-year-old was a very fast figure. She got a 4, which is extremely quick, like faster than Tarifa's ever run, for example. And the same thing as Ways and Means just ran, tied for the best fig in the field. And then she bounced, or whatever you want to say happened at Churchill, came back and repeated that 4. Historically, the pairing your 2-year-old top off a layoff is a very good sign for moving forward. So she's also a bit of a pattern play for anyone who really follows the sheets.
well, those wide trips make those Thoroughgraph
They do.
figs go
They make them
burr.
pop. I mean, look at Ways and Means getting the 4 off the 4 wide, 5 wide last 2 times.
So wait, if you
Who
put
comes in with the same pattern? Truthfully.
so if you put Joel Rosario up on your horse, you just get +3 sheets for figs.
Yeah.
Your horse just goes through the road. Okay.
The other day, after Joel Rosario got inducted in the Hall of Fame, I went through the Racing Onions Twitter feed and all the Joel Rosario memes they posted, and one of them was on the was it like the mile and 16th race that they ran at a mile and 8th on accident or something at Saratoga that one year.
Yeah, it's so good.
And it says when Joel Rosario was asked about the race being run at the wrong distance, he says, "Oh, my horses that run a mile and 16th always run a mile and 8th anyways."
Yeah. So actually, Ben Willicke's mentioning the sort of no love on the 15. There's a couple horses we still need to talk about. I think the 15 is really interesting, and depending how wet the surface is at the time the race goes off, becomes substantially more interesting. She's 2 for 2 on an off track. Tomlinson say that that definitely moves her up. I think Joel has one way to go with that draw. He's got to go to the front end, but Churchill, especially on a wet track, the front end is where you want to be. I mean, not that it isn't in most tracks, but no, I think Our Pretty Woman becomes a lot more interesting if this comes up wet, which the weather forecast is kind of screaming it might. So she's a horse that I think, the more I look at this with her drawing in, she's a horse that I want a little bit more of here.
Yeah, I didn't like her at all over a fast track, because she had everything her own way in the Fairground Oaks and just couldn't put away Tarifa. And I'm not convinced just how much I think of Tarifa, for that matter, despite the fact that she's 4 for 5, Andrew Oaks' favorite. But with that, I mean, Our Pretty Woman had every chance and just wasn't good enough. She's going to have to do it from a miserable post with other speed in the race. So, but the track being fast, I have no interest in her whatsoever. If it's wet, maybe I could be a little more convinced. Clearly, she loves the slop. So if it comes up truly wet, she may get upgraded for my ticket. But either way, she'll be a pace factor, but not one that I expect to stick around over a fast track.
Yeah. Honestly, to be fair with Fairgrounds this year, and Caleb, I know you didn't play Fairgrounds as much as you normally do, but I felt like it was a very weird meet. I felt like the dirt and the turf both did not play how Fairgrounds traditionally plays, and maybe I'm just misremembering. But I felt like a lot of horses shipped into Fairgrounds just didn't run their races. So I don't know if there's something weird was going on with the surface this year or something. I know the turf course, they had some work done on it because, Churchill can't leave well enough alone with turf courses that aren't broken. Yeah, so I don't know if normally if you saw that race for any other front runner at Fairgrounds going to mile and 16th, I mean, that horse wins. That horse always wins at Fairgrounds. But I felt like those horses weren't winning at Fairgrounds as much as they were before. But yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I think with the slop factor, if we do get a muddy track, I do think the 15 is interesting. And Ben Wilkie saying Fairground Oaks best prep. Final answer.
He's
Traditionally, it is the best prep, but I have a hard time. I just don't like Tarifa at all in this spot. I don't know if it's just me being a Caleb, a Caleb chalk hater, because this horse is 7-2 on the morning line. But this just seems like the horse, like at least to me, looks like a horse that just hasn't moved forward. And yeah, has won, but at least on Brisfigs, hasn't really moved forward at all. And those are the type of horses I want to take a short price on.
Yeah, I very much have the same take on her. I mean, who'd she beat in those fairground races? Some very short fields at the fairgrounds, and I don't think that they were that classy. And she really hasn't moved forward. And it's just one of those horses. Like, if she was trained by anybody else, would she be this price? No, she'd probably be at least double this price. And again, people are just, I think it's just the Cox money, and she's the kind of horse I want to take a stab against. And considering all three of us are against her, though, we just put her right in the winner's circle.
Pretty much. Yeah, I really thought so. I just checked the overseas odds for this race on Bovada. I still think that Boys and Means is going to get bet down, but they have her posted currently at fixed odds of plus 525. Tarifa is plus 350, so that 7-2 seems right, which is not what I would have expected, perhaps. Otherwise, they're all pretty similar. I mean, Torpedo Anna dropped down a touch to 9-2, but everyone else is about where you expect.
What's just FYI?
9-2.
Okay. Which I think is very, very, very fair on her.
She's another horse I've seen a lot of chatter about, but I think in a race that you have, 4 or 5 legitimate horses, I don't know that we'll see anybody under 7-2, and maybe that's just what we're seeing here.
Which would be absolutely amazing. That'd be awesome.
Great betting race if you can, if you have a strong opinion.
Yep.
Anything else on this race?
Trying to think if there's anybody else we haven't talked about. There's no one else I need to talk about. So,
Josh not going to make the case for Fiona's Magic again?
Did I try making a case for Fiona's Magic before?
You did.
Oh goodness, what the heck was I thinking?
I mean, it was a reasonable case until it wasn't. But
Oh man. No, I honestly, I felt with those 3 horses. I did see someone talk about Into Champagne trying that well again, but that's another one that I'm just kind of curious as to, it like the horse is kind of just like not move forward since stretching out, and you look at the pedigree and you're like, maybe you should stick with the 1-turn stuff, but.
yeah.
Anything else on tomorrow's card? I know we only looked at the late pick 5, but we got a full day of racing. Was there anything else that was interesting to you guys?
I know, honestly, we talked about this, and it's kind of what I let in with Josh is the fact that this, I think, end to end, the card may somewhat lack star power, but it definitely makes up for it in big, really competitive fields with great betting races and some great betting sequences. I think all of these pick 4s and pick 5s pay really well. And it's just due to field size. It's due to competitiveness. And so, I think there's definitely some spots that I have that I want to build around, but there is just so much value on this card. And it's one of those things where I think you're going to see pick 5s that, you're going to have the favorite win 2 legs, and you're going to have 3, 5, or 6-1s hit, and you're going to all of a sudden see something that pays $2,500 or $3,000 on a pick 5. You're going to see those. You're not going to have to get super creative to find prices. I don't think you're going to see a lot of those 20 or 30 to 1s, but I think you're going to see a lot of those sort of mid-priced horses who make logical sense and you can get to, and just the sharp handicappers are going to really have a field day with us. So I think it's a really, really, really good. Both days are both really good cards.
Yeah, and we get the return of the fastest horse in the world, overcharged in the turf sprint.
I mean, what the horse is like? What is it? 7-2 in the morning line. That's not right.
I mean, the horse ran, I think, like the fastest time for him since Flightline, like in a turf sprint, admittedly, but yeah, 7-2. But yeah, I do agree with who was it, Nick? No, not about McPeak. No. Zygira. I do like Zygira a bit in the Latro end. So doubling into Overcharge seems like a pretty very likely play for me, depending on how that looks in the doubles.
Man,
Awesome.
I don't. I like Idiomatic a lot in that spot. Of course, I would as the chalk, but Idiomatic was good to me on Breeders' Cup. So
It doesn't hit the same without.
I know you really need the
well, the
noise.
soundboard.
Yeah.
No, you really need the soundboard. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, guys. This was fun. Sorry, I was late, but we. I mean, it took us like half hour to get food to come out in an empty bar. It was actually kind of it's kind of crazy, but yeah, that's gonna do it for us. Obviously, check out ontherwronglead.com. We have and our YouTube channel. We have so many shorts up right now. I don't know if Mark has figured out the other shorts that we're missing, but if not,
We don't have as many as we should.
I will get the rest of them. I will get the rest of them up tonight. So
I need Josh IT needs to save my ass.
Yeah, so the rest of those
failed
shorts,
miserably.
Caleb's thoughts on some Derby horses, and then we'll be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. I am going to be helping prep for this party. So I heard that there will be ribs tomorrow, though. So I'm very excited about that.
Wait, what kind of ribs though?
They're smoked ribs. I don't know. I'm guessing they're pork ribs, but
Do they do like St. Louis ribs down there, or do you get more like Texas or?
I don't know. I'll talk to the pit.
I mean, you're not
going to
get Carolina there, okay?
No, but our gracious hosts here, or my gracious hosts are cooking, and then I'm gonna help them put up tents and other stuff tomorrow. So should be fun. All right, and that's yeah. On the wronglead.com, at wrong_lead. I'm at Sherry Drank. Mark's at 2 turns. Caleb at Caleb WVU. And let's make some money, guys.